Guys, as far as historical regions go, there really isn't any other region quite like Europe. It's almost the exact opposite of every other region that we've studied so far in Unit 1. European civilization is kind of weak, fragmented, decentralized, and unstable. And yet, people still find a way to create order and establish legitimacy. Here in our final lesson of Unit 1, it's about Europe. And if you understand why Europe looks so different here, you'll understand a lot about how it becomes powerful later on. Let's look at the 3 questions we need to be able to explain at the end of this video. Number 1, how did Christianity shape society in Europe? Number 2, how did Europe's fragmented and decentralized political power lead to the manorial system and feudalism? And number 3, explain how serfdom was the basis of the social structure in Europe during the period. Before we can answer these questions definitively, though, we need some relevant historical context here. Let's rewind to Europe 1,000 years prior to the Roman Empire to view the seeds of what Europe would become in Unit 1 of our class. The Roman Empire was the largest, most powerful empire in the world during their time. They conquered land around the Mediterranean, unified the empire around their Christian faith, and created a centralized government, and before it became an empire, created an early model of representative government. There was a famous saying about the Roman Empire that the empire was so powerful and stable that a citizen of Rome could walk 1,000 miles in any direction and be safe from harm. That if anybody harmed them, they would face the wrath of the Roman Empire. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but you can tell that the Roman Empire was a well-respected civilization. You did not mess with the Romans. I know this is not a video about the Roman Empire, but it's important to understand this historical context so we understand how Europe became what it was in 1200 CE. When the Roman Empire ultimately collapsed, about 800 years before when this class starts, it fragmented into 2 parts. The eastern part of the empire became the Byzantine Empire, and they viewed themselves as the sequel to the Roman Empire, the phoenix that rose from the ashes of the collapsing Roman Empire. The Byzantines will occupy Eastern Europe, and Western Europe will be fragmented in a variety of countries controlled by regional powers. Let's start with them in the West first, and then we'll jump back over to the Byzantines. Notice some of the names of these empires: the Vandals, the Visigoths, etc. These were invading groups that conquered parts of the former Roman Empire. Stability and central government dissolved, and the region encountered an era of turmoil. Cultural growth was stymied, and the peasant population of Europe focused on survival. Cities and trade routes became less safe, and people would flee to the countryside, seeking refuge from regional lords and landowners to find safe and consistent work. Let's take a moment to contrast the circumstances of the European Roman Empire versus Europe in the medieval era. The Roman Empire was a centralized government, was safe, and facilitated trade and travel throughout the land. Medieval Europe had a decentralized government, was less safe, and less trade and travel occurred. So how did the people of Europe survive in this new era? The answer lies in the development of the systems of feudalism and the manorial system. Manor lords often owned a manor, or what most people would call a castle, and the surrounding land in the countryside. Regional supervisors or vassals would be delegated parts of the lord's land to supervise and manage. The peasant population of Europe could find safety at these manors by submitting to serfdom. As serfs, they would provide manual labor for the manor lord on his lands and be granted a level of safety and security through knights that served the manor lords, and even maybe safety in the castles if it came to that. For all of the tough things going on in Europe at this time, this is the era of knights and castles and dragons. Just kidding, no dragons that we know about. Feudalism would provide the social and political structure of society in Europe. All of the members of the manor would fit somewhere on the hierarchy under the manor lord or regional vassal. This determined their social status in society. The manorial system is the self-sufficient nature of the manors. As trade routes were often considered unsafe during the period, the manors were designed to be able to provide everything needed for the people at the manor. The manorial system provided housing, blacksmiths, mills, and even a Catholic church for people to gather and worship in their religion. In the not-so-glamorous life of hardworking serfs, the church was the only unifying institution in European society for hundreds of years. It provided religious reassurance in an era of instability, and during a time when literacy was rare, the church had a priest who may be the only person around to explain what was written in their holy book. During the medieval ages, when the political stability was not always to be relied upon, the Catholic Church would often step in and fill in some of those societal supports. The Catholic Church provided, for example, orphanages, hospitals, and sought to provide sway over political matters. Leaders in Western Europe would often seek validation from the church for their leadership. Look at this interesting contrast here that Western Europe has from lots of other civilizations that we studied in Unit 1. While there's no central political authority in Western Europe, there is a centralized cultural authority that maintained power. The Byzantines did not practice Roman Catholic Christianity, though. As a result of the Great Schism in the 11th century, the Byzantine Empire had formally adopted Greek or Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Before the official collapse of the former Roman Empire, they had moved their capital to Constantinople on the Bosphorus Strait. Due to their geography, they interacted with early Russian civilization, parts of Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. In fact, it was during the 11th century as well that the Seljuk Turks had conquered land from the Byzantines. This prompted the Byzantines to seek military aid from Western Europe and contributed to starting the very first crusade. The Crusades is one of those concepts that helps us summarize a lot of the things that we came to understand here in this topic. Pope Urban II of the Catholic Church urged the people of Western Europe to provide military support to the Byzantines in fighting the Seljuk Turks. The Pope framed this call to action, or crusade, as part of one's religious duty to push forward the faith of Christianity and push back the religion of Islam associated with the Seljuk Turks, particularly as it came to controlling the Holy Land in Christianity, or the city of Jerusalem. So manor lords called upon their vassals and knights to join them in the crusade to Jerusalem. Over the next few hundred years, crusading culture became a part of life in Europe, as various other popes would call for more than 14 major crusades and an assortment of other minor crusades. For all the terrible death and destruction these crusades caused, it oddly created a trade interaction between Europe and the Middle East with cultural and technological transfer that had really not previously occurred between these regions. When we step back and look at Europe during this period, what we really see is a society trying to replace the stability it lost after the fall of Rome. Without strong, consistent, centralized states, power shifted into smaller, self-sufficient local systems built on land, labor, and loyalty. Europe wasn't a unified region by any stretch, but it was building structures that allowed society to function in the absence of an empire. Hey, let's recap really quickly what we covered today. Christian society provided the cultural stability in Europe during an era of turmoil and uncertainty. Western Europe's decentralized political system pushed many people to find safety on feudal manors as serfs. Serfdom as a labor system provided a consistent workforce in Western Europe during the medieval ages. The Byzantine Empire had adopted Greek Orthodox Christianity in Eastern Europe. The Crusades were endorsed by the Catholic Church and created a crusading culture that would lead to the deaths of thousands of people and become a catalyst for religious turmoil for future generations. Check out a free resource guide for this video in the description below. Then go ahead and dive into my other Unit 1 videos. Have a great day!